Excuse me, madam. You're standing still in a no parking zone. If you don't get a move on that body, I'll be forced to give you a ticket.
Hey, it's Sergeant Be Safe.
Danger! Danger!
Excuse me, ma'am. The sign says no parking.
I'm not parking. I'm just running into Dunkin' Buck to get my coffee.
You are parked. You're outside of your vehicle and you're illegally parked in a fire lane. Parking in a proper spot and taking a few extra steps is not going to make you late for work. Matter of fact, here comes the fire truck now and you're in the way. This is going to cause a problem. I may need to just have this vehicle towed so the fire department can get in here and deal with this emergency. If the sign says no parking, do as it says. Don't park there.
Oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed. It would be my fault if a tragedy happened. Thanks for not giving me a ticket, Sergeant Be Safe. Now I know for next time.
Well, just consider this your warning and definitely let this be the last time. I'm Sergeant Be Safe, and it may seem minor, but it's very important. Make sure you park legally. And that's your tip of the day to get you on your way.
Subscribe now.
Let's go start the show.
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Black and Blue. And if you're new to this page, this is the platform where we highlight law enforcement and first responders, whether they're rookie, seasoned, or retirees. We talk about their trainings, their publications, their experiences, so many different things on this platform, and we have a lot of fun doing it. This is educational and entertaining. Also, make sure it is interactive as well. Make sure if you put your comments in your comment section and we'll address them accordingly. Like I said, this is interactive, or if you're looking for the shout out, like Greg Foster already did, he said, "Good evening, CT." I put it up on the screen. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in, Greg. Put your name and where you're from in the comment section. Otherwise, I cannot see who's on here because we're streaming on 5 different platforms. So if you're looking for a shout out, put your name and where you're from in the comment section. Also put your question in the comment section. We'll address it. We're streaming on 2 pages on YouTube, 1 page on LinkedIn, and 2 pages on Facebook right now. So needless to say, we're on a bunch of different airways, but we got to get that message out. This is the platform where we humanize the badge. We talk about trendy discussions. We talk about ongoing discussions, and we try to make them make sense as best as we can. We do a lot of interviews on here where we acknowledge officers, first responders, their burning desire for the badge, their how they came up, their mentors, and things that they've experienced, and things after they've completed the career process. There's life after the badge and things that they may have done as well. Got Ernest Stevens on here. Good evening, Coach. Ernie Stevens from Texas. Hey, thank you for tuning in. Pleasure to have you, sir. Please tag, like, and share. Tune in. We got a great show ahead of you. Absolutely. This show right here is sponsored by One Way Publishing. Some of you may know, some of you may not. One Way Publishing, their motto is they can turn a mere thought and turn it into a book that's bought. You can see a few books behind me right here and a few other clients that came through. They also made their dreams come true, whether it is fantasy, fiction, nonfiction, autobiography, a cookbook, children's book, what have you. One Way Publishing can turn that thought into a mere book that's bought. And don't take my word for it. Just stand by. We got a commercial that explains it.
Publishing. Have you ever wanted to explain something, tell a story, or leave a piece of you behind? Have you ever wanted to write your own book, but not specifically know how to do it? Well, get ready. One Way Publishing's here. We can turn a mere thought into a book that's bought. People need to learn from you. They need to hear that story. Kids need to read that book. Imagine if you wrote your own children's book and get to read it to your kids. Here at One Way Publishing, we can get your fiction, nonfiction, fantasy, instructional, what have you, done. All at a reasonable price and definitely a reasonable time frame. And if you don't believe me, ask Sergeant Be Safe. He's working on his right now. He's definitely writing the best chapter of his life. Make sure you check out his cartoon skits that air on the podcast Black and Blue.
As Sergeant Be Safe said, that's your tip of the day to get you on your way.
And there you have it, One Way Publishing. And you see it scrolling at the bottom. You see it in the comment section as well. Workwithclee.com. Ceddy P's on here. Thank you for joining us. Tag, like, and share. Stay tuned. You're in for a tremendous show. Workwithclee.com right there. It's on the website. The website's scrolling below. If you're looking to have your book published, that's how you reach out to One Way Publishing. If you're looking to be a guest on the show, that's also how you reach out to One Way Publishing. If you're looking to be a voiceover for a certain Be Safe commercial, that's how you reach out to get that done. And just to put that out there, the first draft is still completed for Sergeant Be Safe's first children's book. It should be hopefully done, I want to say mid-month or so, toward the end of this month. And we should be going to publication relatively soon. I want to get it in before the end of the school year and start getting it into those classes. And goal is to get it in the hands of at least 300 students for free. So that is our goal before the end of the school year. Hopefully we can make that happen. So stay tuned on the turnouts of that. But without further ado, the reason why you guys are here, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get right into it. Going to change the banner right here. Some of you may know her, others of you may not, but you're going to learn about her today and her experiences and things that she's done. She's a 26-year veteran in law enforcement. She's been retired for a few years now. She came into the profession when it was really a male-dominated organization. She's she's a woman in policing that wasn't very popular at that time. And she can correct me if I'm wrong. She's also been in the streets as far as patrolling. She's done training. She's been a patrol sergeant. She's worked with CID. She's been a supervisor for a homicide section. She's also an award-winning author of not one, not two, but 3 volumes of, I have one right here, the other one on audio book, Behind and Beyond the Badge, there, autofocus right there. If you haven't got your copy, make sure you get your copy and stay tuned. It is a collection of series of stories and events of experiences. She's the author of that, like I said, and she came here. She founded Not Robbery to share her story and experiences here on One Way Publishing. And Sergeant Be Safe is going to introduce her to welcome her to the platform, and we're going to jump right into it.
Hello, this is Sergeant Be Safe, and I want to welcome all you viewers and our very special guest to Black and Blue. So get your questions ready and enjoy the show.
Film Pack.
Subscribe now.
Film Pack.
And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, without further ado, let me get this screen ready here. I'm going to bring her to the stage. Here we are, Donna Brown. Donna, are you there?
I am, sir.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us tonight. I appreciate you making yourself available and joining this platform.
Thank you for asking. I love doing these. It's great to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Sure. I work with the Tallahassee, Florida Police Department, the capital city of Florida, for 26 years. 26 years, 3 months, and 5 days to be exact, but who counted? As you said, I was one of only 5 women when I was hired at the department in 1979.
Okay.
And so obviously it was a male-dominated profession. I mean, it still is, but certainly women have made huge strides in the profession. I did work. I was a patrol officer. I was a field training officer, field training sergeant, worked in the department's training section. I taught every single Citizens Police Academy that we had from the time we started it till I retired. It was one of my favorite things to do. I spent 15 years in the investigations, and 10 of those years I supervised our department's homicide unit, and was one of my best assignments, certainly one of my more challenging ones, but I wouldn't trade any of it for anything.
I bet. It sounds like an exciting career, and it sounds like you got to get your hands involved in a lot of different aspects, from being involved with the community and solving crimes and actually doing patrol work and being with the criminal investigation department. So many different things involved in your 26-year career.
I did. I like I said, I loved my career. The opportunities I had were amazing. I met some amazing people both within the job and in the community, and I just can't say enough or not. I loved my job. Gotcha.
So let's backtrack a little bit. When did you actually know that you wanted to get into law enforcement? What gave you that burning desire to be like, you know what, I'm gonna go become a cop, and I'm not gonna take no for an answer, and I'm gonna make it happen?
This actually is not a very good story. I really had no desire to be a police officer. Initially, I thought I wanted to be a teacher. And when I actually came up to Florida State, though, my initial field of study was music, but I quickly learned I was not talented enough to make a living. So in the back of my mind, though, I always kind of wanted to work with at-risk kids too. And so someone up here recommended that I start taking maybe some sociology classes, which I did. That led into my criminology classes. Got my degree in criminology. When I started applying for jobs, I didn't want to be a cop. I wanted to be a detective, right off the bat. And so I started applying for a bunch of the state agencies here. And at that time, they all wanted women, but they wanted them to have 3 to 5 years of experience in law enforcement. So one day I opened up our local newspaper, and there was an ad that the Tallahassee Police Department was hiring. I applied, got hired, and the rest is history. But I initially said, well, I'll do my 3 to 5 years there. I'll get my experience and I'll get out. And I fell in love with the job. So I ended up staying.
So you ended up getting stuck, huh?
I did.
It's not a bad thing. Absolutely. So throughout the process, were there anyone either in college or throughout life or through your career that you that took you under your wing, took you under their wing, that you emulated yourself after, who was a mentor or helped influence you to become the person that you are today?
Not really, and I don't mean that in an arrogant way. Again, when I was hired at the police department, the five women, we were all on different shifts. I never saw another female officer for like 18 months. Or we'd pass in the hallway at shift change. I did work with some amazing guys. And so some of those I think initially were great role models in what the job should be. Eventually, as more women got hired, we actually did have a woman who was brought in or came in from another agency. And she kind of became my mentor. She was an amazing person, not just a law enforcement officer, but an amazing person. Sadly, she passed away from cancer. So, she's not with us anymore. But I would have to say just some of the special guys that I worked with, which wasn't easy back then. So the ones that actually did help are even more near and dear to me than some of the others. And then, of course, Joanne. So. Gotcha.
Thank you for sharing. So throughout the process of going through the academy, were the standards the exact same for you that they were for the males as well? Did you have to do the same qualifications at the range, the same PT qualifications, testing standards for those of you who aren't aware how the police academy actually is or functions?
Yes, even back then, and I went through the academy. I'm going to date myself here in 1979, and yes, we had. You were a recruit. Didn't matter, male, female, whatever. All the defensive tactics, academics, shooting on the range, driving, everything. It was the same, no matter what.
Gotcha. And did you find it difficult, or was it? Did it come to you relatively easy, at least for the academy standards?
The most difficult part of me, or the academy for me, was firearms, and actually, because I'd never been around guns. I'd never fired a gun. But actually the range instructors are like, you make it a little bit easier because you don't have any bad habits for us to get rid of. So, but that was probably my biggest challenge. Yeah. Okay.
All right. And so what are some experiences that you had in your 26-year career, some positive experiences and some not so good experiences that you're able to share with us?
They're what I like to call career-defining moments, and
I like that.
Yeah, and you've read some of the books, and that's one thing I ask everybody that's in the books when I tell their stories, and they're all different, as you can see, and the very first one I like to talk about is I was still working the streets. I was pretty new to the job, and I got dispatched to a vehicle versus pedestrian hit and run. And so when I got there, the individual was laying there in the middle of the street, and I got out. I was still waiting for EMS to get there. And to me, it was obvious he was in really serious shape. He had brain mass coming from his ears. And on the sidewalk are a group of people, bystanders, and they just started immediately yelling and screaming at me, help him, do something. And so, I went to my car. I got a blanket out of the trunk. I came back, and they're still yelling at me. I'm still waiting on EMS to get there. And I really knew he wasn't long for the world. So I put the blanket on him. I got down there with him, and his eyes could still follow me a little bit. And so I just started talking to him. I held his hand, and he passed away. And everybody's yelling and screaming still, you didn't do anything and all that. And I remember when EMS got there, and then I stood up, and that's the moment my emotional wall went up. And I think anyone who's a first responder, not just law enforcement, you kind of have that wall, and that helps you do the job. Not necessarily the best thing for you mentally, for your mental health, but I specifically remember that. It was like I stood up and this whole wall just went up instantly. So that's just one of the things that I recall.
Right. Yeah. I know that's not easy to experience, and thank you for sharing, because it's not easy to actually put personal experiences out there for the world to hear. But it is necessary, especially when we talk about law enforcement and mental health and things along those lines, because those situations like that do affect us long term if they're not dealt with properly as well.
Well, and I'd say this, if anyone ever says to you that the job hasn't affected them or doesn't affect them, I'm going to call Pinocchio, and they're just flat out not telling you the truth, because you can't do this job without it affecting you.
Agreed.
And that's we talked about it earlier. When I talk to a lot of the younger officers, and sometimes the older officers, is I don't talk about this stuff because people won't understand. They don't talk to their families. They don't talk to coworkers. And I'm like, if we don't talk about it, they can't understand. And if you want, the mental health issues to get more traction and wellness programs, people have to have an understanding as to why those things are important. So is it easy often to talk about these things? No. And I guess it's a little easier for me. I'm more removed from the job. So it is easier to talk about those things, but I think it's important.
I agree. I know I went through a phase in my career, and I may be coming out of it, not still. So I don't come home from work and immediately want to talk about the day, or talk about situations. Certain things I don't talk about at all, just because I just don't feel like reliving it. Not that it was just that traumatic. I just don't. It was just annoying where I don't feel like reliving it to that point. But there were times I remember when I tried to, when I was in a previous marriage, tried to make sense of things. And to actually get to the point of the story, I had to backtrack and explain so much just to get there, because my wife was not in law enforcement or first responder at any cost at the time or anything like that. So to try and explain that, it was exhausting in itself just to make it make sense. And I had to define each and every layer just to get to the point. By the time I got to the point, I don't feel like talking about this anymore.
No, I get it. I understand. And it's a challenge. It's a challenge for everybody. I understand.
Yeah, we got a comment on the floor from Ernest Stevens. Miss Donna, I've read all 3 volumes of your book and love them dearly. Can you please tell me what your aha moment was to motivate you to write this collection?
Mr. Stevens is one of the amazing individuals I've met through social media and with the books. My aha moment was, to be honest with you, the books were born out of anger. When I wrote volume 1, or got the idea for volume 1, it was not long after Ferguson. Thank you. And so the country's opinion towards law enforcement was similar to what it is now. And I knew, I'm like, all cops aren't bad. It's such a minority. People make mistakes. They're humans. Some don't deserve to wear the badge and be in the profession. I know you know that as well, and I know Ernie knows that. So I was like, what can I do to help change that narrative? And that's when, for me, it was about humanizing the badge. So I reached out to, and in volume 1, everybody in volume 1 is retired. And because I didn't know how this was going to be received, I didn't want to put anybody in a tough position if they were still working with their department. And so most of the people in volume 1, I actually personally worked with. And when I started approaching them with the idea of telling their stories and why I wanted to do that, I got no no's. I mean, everybody jumped on board, and so I wrote volume 1, and I had no intention of writing volume 2 or volume 3. But volume 1 was overwhelmingly positive. The reception I got, and it opened up so many doors for me with public speaking, with professional groups, women's groups, college, universities. I got to go speak to criminal justice students. And that's what I really love about this. It's opened the doors for podcasts, to have that chance. And so I wrote volume 2, and then of course I just published volume 3 in December. I like to think I'm very proud of all 3 of them, but I like to think that I got better as a writer. But all of them are just amazing stories, in my opinion. And that's what people don't know. I think my books are different. And I actually got a negative review just a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
That's okay. And and as an author, I mean, I don't expect everybody will like my books.
Correct.
And I'm often suspicious as an avid reader. If every review I see for your book is a 5 out of 5, something's not right. But the point was, they were disappointed because they basically wanted more war stories, and that's not the purpose of these books. There are plenty of those books out there.
There are.
I wanted to humanize the badge, and when I thought about it, it's police officers, it's firefighters, it's our EMS people, our dispatchers, and I include our forensics people because I think that's a group that is so often neglected. And when you think about it, they see it, they step over it, they measure it, they have to photograph it, they have to collect it. And some of these scenes can take days. You know, like your mass shootings, those crime scenes aren't processed in a couple of hours. Right. And so I'm happy to see there are some organizations that are starting to include forensics people. And I couldn't have done my job without all of those. So I have at least one person that represents each of those categories in all 3 books. And I'm excited about that too. That's opened up a lot of dialogue.
Yes, it is bringing to light a lot of overlooked information, or a lot of overlooked facets of being a first responder in law enforcement as well. Yes.
Right. And I'm going to tell a story on Ernie. Ernie and his wife read the books together, and I told him, I said, just what he told me, if I never sold another book or nobody ever read another book, they were totally worth it. He said they really opened up a different and new and better line of communication between his wife. She asked him, she's like, do you really feel the way a lot of these people do? And he goes, yeah, I do. And so that's right in my heart,
Nice. There you go. I'm happy to hear the nice side of the story. Absolutely. And I know as we talk backstage, our goal is to humanize the badge, to actually sit down and read each book with your significant other, spouse, and to actually have a conversation on an even playing field is a big deal. It's a big deal. So shout out to you.
Well, and that's something else too, that I really had no idea what happened with the books. I've had police explorers come up to me and with the books and ask me to sign, and they've already read them and said it kind of gives them an idea of what to expect with a career. That's what they want to do. I've had family members of first responders. And in book 1, I included a woman whose husband was killed in the line of duty. And I think that was an important perspective for people to read about. And volume 2, a woman whose son was killed, and he happened to be a coworker of mine, a friend that was killed. And I was tasked with conducting that investigation, and so having her story in there, too. So it's just kind of opened up the world, and more than I ever thought would have happened. So I'm really happy.
Well, congratulations on writing all 3 volumes. I know it sometimes it can be a task at hand, and being an author myself, I do know going through I think I'm getting a little better as you go along.
Yes.
Experience. Yeah. So, congratulations also on publishing volume 3 this past December. But are there any stories that you could share with us to highlight each volume of the book, that if someone who hasn't heard of you or hasn't heard of any of the volumes, that you can highlight anything in specific? I know that's a broad question.
Well, it is kind of, but in volume 1, and it goes kind of with the humanizing the badge. There are 2 stories in particular. One was Dewey Rio. He lost his wife to cancer. And that, for him to open up and let me tell that story, but it was the people behind the badge are human. They experience everything that everybody else does. Another one, Kelly Burke, his wife, very young. And I remember because I worked with him when all this was going on. She went into heart failure and ended up being a heart transplant recipient. Again, just it's not to, it's to humanize the badge. We experience everything. There are in volume 1 some I almost shot. I think every police officer has that story. There are a couple of those. And the war stories in the books are there for a purpose. It's to help explain what they were feeling emotionally or how it affected them, and that's the purpose of the war stories. Volume 2, and you and I talked about this prior, it is the story you said hit you, is Scott Angulo. It's not a typical story, but it's it was a designed ambush that occurred outside of one of my old coworkers' house. He was actually getting ready to go work an FSU home football game, which we all had to work for years. And deputies responded, and the first deputy there, the suspect shot and killed him. And Scott didn't know that. He heard the gunshots. He put his family safe, he thought, in the house, and he went out. He found another deputy that had been shot and wounded. They ended up confronting the suspect. Scott did shoot and kill him, and the suspect had set fire to his own home, which is what the premise of the call was. Right. And unbeknownst to Scott was that his wife and his kids, because they had a big picture window, actually saw all of this unfold, and how that changed their whole family. They ended up having to move, and again, that's a far-reaching story that doesn't happen every day, but it also highlights what does happen, what does affect the family. So that's a story that really, that he opened his heart and really shared that story was phenomenal for me. And I think it's a great read for anybody. Yeah. And that's the one thing with the books, they don't have to be read in order. You can read volume 3 and not having read volume 1 or 2 because they're standalone. It's just these stories. So.
Gotcha. And thank you for sharing. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, stand by. We got to do a commercial break. We have Sergeant Be Safe right here. I hope you enjoy it, and we will be right back with Donna Brown.
I'm over here counting my stash. Cooper, get out of here. Last time you got me in trouble with Be Safe. This is a good spot to sell my drugs.
Sergeant, Be Safe. We just got a call for suspicious activity. Copy that, dispatch. Captain Chaos and his K9 Kraken along with me are just now arriving on the scene. We'll stop and check it out. 10-4, Sergeant, Be Safe.
Oh no, cops! I'm out of here.
Release the Kraken.
Hey, we see your drugs over there. Stop running, treacherous Tony. We will get you.
All right. I give up. I won't do it again.
Yeah, you say that all the time.
I'm sick of going to jail.
Illegal drugs are a bad decision. Just ask treacherous Tony. This isn't a good view. Take it from me, Sergeant Be Safe. I want you to make good decisions. And that's your tip of the day to get you on your way.
Subscribe now.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. I hope you guys like that commercial. That's one of the funner ones with the newer character, Treacherous Tony, who has a very distinct voice. However, we are back with Donna Brown, the accomplished author of Volume 3. There, yeah, Shayla, Sergeant Be Safe. Absolutely. Thanks for tuning in. The accomplished author of Behind and Beyond the Badge, the 3 volumes, and the 26-year veteran, retired veteran with law enforcement. And we were just talking about some of the stories and experiences that were in some of the volumes of her books. So make sure you guys get a copy. And speaking of getting a copy, if Donna, if there's anyone who's on here that is just now hearing about these books and that not seen or heard of you before, how could they go about getting a copy of one or all 3 of your books?
There are certainly links on the website, but honestly, they're all on Amazon, and that's probably the easiest and best way to purchase them. All 3 of them are in 3 formats: ebook, paperback, or hardcover. Volume 2, like you said, though, actually also is available in audio. So really, Amazon would be the best way to purchase them. Gotcha.
And on Amazon as well, they're best-selling books. And did you receive any awards for any of these books?
I did. For volumes 1 and 2, they both won gold medals at the Florida Authors and Publishers contest. It's a nationwide book contest. So I was very proud of that. And volume 2 was a finalist for at the International Book Awards for nonfiction true crime. I haven't entered volume 3 in anything yet. So yeah, I'm proud of those.
Yeah, congratulations. As well, you should be as well.
Thank
Absolutely. You. Sharing experiences. What reason? I know you touched on it. To humanize the badge, is that the sole purpose of writing your volume?
I'm glad you brought that up because I was thinking on the commercial. There's another reason, and I think especially in volume 3, it highlights it. And there's actually 4 stories in volume 3 that there's 2 that are just one being Dan Bright. Dan's a military veteran, was shot in the line of duty. He's paralyzed from the waist down now. And he really talks about, he went down a very dark path. He's obviously back out from under that. He and his wife, who's also in law enforcement, should be graduating with their masters soon, and they're going to both be licensed mental health therapists for first responders and military. His story is just an amazing thing. But the other thing, there's 2 people in particular that are in the book, and it highlights, and I hear this a lot, there is life after law enforcement. And a lot of people, some people tell me, it's like, I don't know what to do. It's the only thing I know how to do. It's who I am, which I disagree with. And it took me a long time to get out from that. I used to think that that's Sergeant Donna Brown, head of homicide. That's who I was. And they're really not. It's what I did for a living. And sometimes that distinction is hard to make. But there's 2. Jim Russell, his love and his college degree is in art. Okay. And when he retired, he went back to his first love, which was painting. He now has a studio. It's here in Tallahassee, so I get to see him a lot. His business is growing. He's now teaching classes. He's selling his art like crazy. Nice. So, there is life after. The other is Jason Harney. Jason's retired from the Las Vegas Metro PD, and Jason got interested in film work when he was still working in training. He was a sergeant in their training unit. And he has since produced some amazing documentary films. Most are law enforcement related, not all of them. And one in particular, I'm drawing a blank here, but I think anyone who is a property detective, it should be mandatory viewing. But he's done. The other one is The Wounded Blue and all that. So he's phenomenal. But he goes back after retiring. He goes back to a love, and I love seeing people flourish in retirement. It used to be years and years ago that most people lasted about 5 years. Yeah. And now it warms my heart that I'm seeing people go back to their loves and their flourishing, and they're still giving back to their communities, but just in a different way. So, so that's a second goal of the books, is for those who are first responders to know there is life after.
And it's nice to hear, nice to share. I know in the academy they told us to prepare for life after the badge itself. But you're so young and so early in your career, you're like, I have forever to worry about that. But I'm glad you shared the one example. I hope he's on here. I'm not going to say your name. I know you're a former guest on the show. He was an art major as well. He's kind of in the middle to end of his career. I know he has an art studio. I know he works in his spare time. And just to hear that story, I hope it resonates with you. You know who you are. I'm not going to put you out there.
Good. Yes, I hope it does.
And I see Ernest Stevens is back again with a comment. Ernest, I swear he has my playbook because he's hitting the topics in my very next questions, which is fine. Thank you. The stories are amazing, but I feel Volume 3 really focuses on mental health, self-care, wellness, and resiliency. By embracing this content in her books will help break through the stigma of law enforcement. Break the stigma in law enforcement. Correction. Yes, absolutely. And we talk about so many times on the platform on life after the job itself, on recruitment and retention, and mental health and community service. How strongly do you feel that this job weighs heavy on our mental health, and how it affects us if it's not handled properly or taken care of properly after we retire?
Gosh, well, I think sadly, Ernie knows, and we see it every day, that the suicide rate in law enforcement is it's skyrocketing. And don't quote me on the year, but a few years ago, I believe we had more officers die by suicide than line of duty deaths. I think we have a long way to go, and Ernie is amazing in this arena. And it is, I'm happy to see though that there are so many agencies that are pushing this narrative and are in a positive way. And the one thing I said with Dan Bright, when I talk about, being paralyzed, his department did a phenomenal thing. They kept him on. He's still a sworn officer. Right. He is actually their agency's wellness coordinator now. Right. And so it's those types of agencies, where Ernie was from, San Antonio, with their mental health unit. Baltimore has a phenomenal mental health unit. And I think we're certainly making strides on that. But I did try to focus on that a little bit more in volume 3 than I had the previous books. And it's just, besides humanizing the badge, the mental health side for all first responders has kind of become a passion of mine as well. Absolutely. And that's why I don't mind talking about things personally so much anymore. And I said it's easier for me. I'm removed from the job, but so whatever I can do on my part, that's what I'm going to do. Absolutely.
And so, kind of shifting gears a little bit. We hear a lot. We have a few people who aren't in law enforcement or first responder that normally watch the show or watch the replay, and they're interested in community service. And I know that you said every single year that you were with your department all the way up until you did you retired. You did the Community Police Academy. Is that what it is?
The Citizens Police Academy. Yes, sir.
All right. And that's community engagement in itself. Can you share your experiences on that and how it also kind of bridged the gap between law enforcement and the community?
I encourage everybody, and I love having the negative conversations. I don't shy away from those, but I encourage people who don't understand. Almost every agency, or whether it's a police department or sheriff's department, has some type of a citizens police academy, and I try to encourage people to do that. I'm not saying it's going to change their minds, but I think it might give them a different perspective on things that might make the dialogue even better. And I get people too who say, well, I don't like it. People question what I do. And I'm like, you should encourage it. That's a perfect opportunity to have a conversation. Why do cops do this? Well, no, we know it's not set in stone, but a lot of times, this is the reason why. And I think those are perfect opportunities to talk with the community, engage them. And like I said, and I learn too. I see perspectives that sometimes that I never thought of before. So it's a two-way street. And I think it's only a positive thing. So I encourage people, if you have a chance, go through your Citizens Police Academy.
Nice. So, in the process of while you were on patrol or sergeant on patrol, did you engage with the community as well beyond the Citizens Police Academy? Did you actually get out and do foot patrols or parking walks, whatever you may call them, or get out and have one-on-ones with individuals in the community, or play sports, or so many different things? I know there's Shop with the Cop and the gimmicky things, but did you or anyone that you worked with did the things that were kind of everyday patrol that don't get highlighted and that engages with the community?
Yes. And obviously when I was working the roads with the early 80s, we really didn't have a lot of those types of programs. Some of those were just starting. There was a gentleman, and I worked the southwest and south side of our town, which economically challenged for the most part for years. And I met a gentleman, his name was Mr. Brown. And when I checked on, if I was working afternoon shift, I tried to go down there at least once a week. If time and calls for service allowed. And I'd sit on the front porch and we'd have a glass of iced tea. And his yard and the house was immaculate, but around him you could see the neighborhood was changing. And he had been there for 30, 40 years. And so to listen to his perspective about the crime in the neighborhood and all that, it really opened my eyes. And so I tried to get our officers when we could. We do directed patrols down there, try to address some of those problems. And on night shift, we used to get out, and now I know they can't really do that. We used to get out and actually shake doors. But we had little cards too. We say, hey, I was here at 2:30 in the morning. I did a business check and everything seemed fine. And just those little things. And those are things that I absolutely loved to do when I was working.
Yeah, and those are the kind of things that make a difference too. I mean, I know citizens really love, like, wow, they're not just out here pulling people over just for the heck of it. They're actually doing something, going by, leaving the car, check this door. Hey, wake up in the morning, I feel pretty good that I know that you came by here and everything's good.
Yeah. And I realize policing has changed over the years. So I don't want people to think that, I don't get that. I do. And gosh knows, I wish I had half the technology that's available now when I was working in homicide and especially from the forensic side. So I do get that, but I just think every opportunity we get, we need to get out of the car and talk and engage. And like I said, the Zoom and all these things are great. I'm a hugger. And, I love to meet people face to face. So.
Gotcha. So let me ask you this: with like we spoke earlier on in the interview, a higher amount of females are getting in the profession, which is a good thing. What kind of advice would you give to a female who's a rookie female who's getting into the profession, or someone that's kind of teetering, like, I don't know if I should do this or shouldn't I? And they're on the line if they're going to cross over and become a sister in blue as well. What kind of advice would you give them?
First and foremost, if they do choose to do this, I would find a mentor. And it doesn't necessarily have to be another female, although I think there are some amazing women out there, and maybe not even in your own agency. There are women that have risen through the ranks. There's chiefs of police everywhere now. I love the new 30 by 30 initiative to have 30% of the departments women by 2030. I think that's awesome. I love seeing more and more agencies signing on to that. But if you're not sure, and this is not just for women, it's for anybody who may be considering a job in law enforcement, do some ride-alongs. Find an officer maybe that you can pick their brain about it, and someone that might be, but I think ride-alongs kind of open eyes too. When you're talking about you're working shift work, or you're missing holidays and those kinds of things, and it, my other thing is too, because as a field training sergeant, we had some kids that came through, and within 2 or 3 months into the program, they realized this isn't for me. And I'd rather them say that now than a year or two down the road, where either they get themselves hurt or somebody else hurt or are just miserable. It's a noble, honorable profession, but it isn't for everybody.
Right. Thank you for sharing. And that leads into my next question, which I know through the law enforcement, we're very cyclical in with society. Sometimes we're at the very bottom, and society seems like they don't like us, they hate us, they don't want us, they don't need us. Most of the time, at least in my experience in the career, we're somewhere in the middle, where we're kind of appreciated, we're in the middle where we're not really needed until someone needs us. And then, thank you guys for being there. And then other times we're at the very top, where everywhere you go, thank you for your service. Hey, you guys are the best, those things. And it seems like we've been at the bottom for a long time. We're slowly coming back out of that. But with that, agencies across the nation are having a recruitment and retention problem as far as getting new applicants, young adults that are getting out of the military, that are graduating from high school or college, to want to get engaged in the law enforcement career. or you have seasoned vets who are doing what they call the quiet quitting, and they're just hanging on, and they're if they can retire, they're retiring very quickly. What kind of advice would you give anyone at either the front end or the back end of their career for law enforcement throughout the nation here?
Well, in that narrative, I have mixed feelings with that narrative. Is my personal opinion, the vast majority of the people in this country are pro law enforcement. It's a very loud and vocal minority that aren't. And I know sometimes it's hard to get that noise out of your head. But for those who struggle, I know they're a seasoned veteran like you or whatever, remember why you got into this. Remember why. And I will tell this quick story. When I was still a field training sergeant, back in the day before we had computers, I was meeting with him and his FTO to collect the paperwork and go over it. And I remember he got dispatched to a call while we were sitting there to go help an elderly woman who locked herself out of the house. Now, granted, don't always have time to do those things, but we were at a point in the shift where it was quiet. We could do that.
Right.
And I'm like, I used to live for calls like that. I mean, you're actually helping somebody. And his comment was, do we have to do like that? And I was just literally floored. And his FTO, she's sitting over there and she's looking at me and her eyes are like this big. And I was like, I couldn't believe he said that. I was like, and I was like, you need to get out of the car now. And I never yelled at a recruit. I never cussed at a recruit or whatever. But I will say I was not my normal self with him. I was like, well, what is wrong with you? I mean, that's as simple as that call is, that's what you're here to do. But that's when I noticed a shift. People of that age, they grew up watching cop shows, and all the cop shows show. And I'll be honest with you, I don't care much for like the live shows because all they see is chasing down the bad guy and putting him in jail. That's the minority of the time for police work. That there's, downtime, there's the paperwork, there's, all the boring stuff. So, I try to tell you, remember why you love this job. Remember why you do this job. And, try to put that noise out of your head. And it doesn't help that we have some people in the profession. We have some politicians, not to get into a political conversation, who actually push that narrative more than I think it exists. And sometimes that really bothers me. Like I said, just the vast majority of people in this country love their cops. And, it's like you got to tune out that loud vocal minority sometimes.
Gotcha. I'm going to ask a question I got from a young adult who is soon getting out of the military and thinking about going to get their bachelor degree for college. They want to get in law enforcement. They want to wait a few years, of course, until they complete their studies. But they want to know exactly what kind of education should they obtain? What kind of skills and qualifications should they obtain now before they actually start applying for law enforcement jobs to make themselves better while they're working?
Gosh, communications. To me, that's just paramount in that profession. Yep. To be able to have a conversation one-on-one. I realize we're doing this through video, but I think you and I could probably go sit and have a cup of coffee and sit face to face. Some people, and apparently this person's in the military, so they're a little bit older, but people, they text. They don't even make phone calls anymore. They don't have the conversations with people. Yeah. And you have to do that to do this job. So if you think maybe your communication skills aren't, or could use some improvement, I would work on that. Force yourself to get out and just sit down and talk to people. Education wise, gosh, there's so many things out there now where I didn't have a lot of choices. It was pretty much criminal justice, criminology, but there's a lot of choices out there. But for that person too, I would suggest go do some ride-alongs, talk to some officers and go from there.
Start picking the brain. Absolutely. Thank you. Good answer. And Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, stand by. Sergeant Be Safe is going to add his 2 cents, and we will come right back.
I can't wait until my new children's book is finally published. Just riding along in my car listening to music.
Yeah, of course you are. And you're not looking in your rearview mirror either.
OMG, is that Sergeant Be Safe behind me? Guess I should get out of the way.
Oh my goodness! Pull over to the right and get out of the way! There's an emergency up ahead and I need to get there! Drivers, you should be operating your vehicle with your radio at a reasonable level. You should also be aware of your surroundings, including what's behind you. So when I come through with my flashing lights and siren, you can immediately get out the way and I can go help whoever's in danger or whatever emergency is happening. Those seconds that it takes for you to pull over are very valuable. Me and my friends need every second imaginable so we can properly serve you. So pull over to the right immediately when you see our lights and sirens so we can go save a life.
Ah, my packages have finally arrived. About time. I'm sure glad I live in an area where nothing happens. Only action around here are deer chomping on people's flowers. I'll take him in after I get done cutting this here grass. This is my favorite pastime.
Aha! I see a package left unattended.
Another crime of opportunity.
Easy pickings for a guy like me. Oh no! There's Be Safe again.
Sergeant Be Safe,
Hello
is that
there.
you? It's good to see you.
Looks like I'm right on time again. Rob, you blind? Get out of there.
People make it so easy for me to get caught.
Hold on now. He really wanted to steal my packages?
Yes, he did.
Sergeant Be Safe, you're the best, the coolest cat in the land. You saved the day again. We need more like you, brother. We need more like you.
Trust me, I truly appreciate the glory and accolades. But you can really thank me by being vigilant over your property and making my job easy. Well, back to jail you go.
Ooh.
Package thieves are the worst. Even if you can't get home in time, invest in the security camera so you can catch these thieves. And their next view will look like this. Trust me, this isn't a good view. These seats aren't made for comfort, they're made to transport. Kids, this is one seat you don't want to sit in. Just imagine what your parents would think.
Ooh.
And this is Sergeant Be Safe giving you another tip of the day to get you on your way.
Subscribe now.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Another wonderful commercial done by Sergeant Be Safe. You know he has to add his 2 cents in every now and then. So yeah,
I love them. I think they're great.
thank you. They were brought upon because the what is Smokey the Bear and McGruff the Crime Dog and those kind of I wasn't allowed to air them during the podcast, so I had to come up and create my own. That's the birth of Sergeant Be Safe.
They're great.
So jumping back into this interview, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, can I ask Donna Brown, what are your 3 to 5 year goals? I like to say your end game goals, but I know once you set a goal and accomplish it, you set another goal and you keep building. For your books, all 3 volumes of Behind and Beyond the Badge, what would you say your 3 to 5 year goals would be for each volume, or for speaking engagements, or just for information sharing, or finding ways to better tell the stories and humanizing the badge, the to be, I don't want to say be more effective, to reach more people that may not have essentially been affected by your volumes?
Well, as an author, that's always a never-ending pursuit, is how do I get my books out there to more and more people. 3 to 5 years, I think the books are timeless. I don't think they will ever go out of being informative for the profession.
Right.
So I don't know if I'm going to do a volume 4. Of course, I said I wasn't going to do a 2 or 3, and I did. So I don't know. I would like somehow, and I really haven't totally explored this, I would like somehow to be more involved with humanizing the badge at a bigger level, and with that coming the mental health side of it all. Mm-hmm. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if there's an avenue for me, then there may not be, and it may just be jumping at every podcast chance I get, or public speaking engagement. That's what I'll do. And when you were talking about the engagements and some of the when you don't talk about these things or people question it, I ask this question of people at a lot of my speaking engagements. I'm like, do you know what really happens when you call the police? And the simple short answer is, well, of course I call and somebody shows up, and I'm like, well, yeah, that's accurate. But when I go into, okay, let's just say it's a police officer gets there, within seconds they realize, oh crap, I need fire, I need EMS, I need a detective, I need forensics, I need a supervisor, I need more officers. And I literally watch people's eyes open and jaws drop. They really don't have a clue as to how this works. Right. And that's another reason for including fire and dispatchers, which this is shout out to our telecommunicators. It's National Telecommunicators Public Safety Week, so shout out to all of them. But and that's another reason for having these conversations, is people really don't know. So again, when you go back to the 3 to 5 years, whatever I can do on that front as well, I said I don't know what that looks like, and it may be just this. We'll see where that goes.
All right. Well, I hope things work out. I hope you're able to make those leaps and bounds and flourish that way. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, one thing you touched on that I absolutely do want to highlight. Again, a lot of people ask, why are there so many cops that show up to my house when I call for whatever reason? And I remember a couple months ago, a lady called for, we responded to an alarm. Her house alarm went off. She was returning home. And she was thinking that nothing's going on. We got a call for an alarm. Why are there 4 cops in front of my house? There must be someone inside, something along those lines. So we had to sit there and explain it to her, which wasn't a big deal. She was just curious on why 4 police officers were there when she thought one could just show up. Had to explain we handle calls by 2. There's always 1, there's 2 for safety purposes, so many different reasons. She's like, okay, that makes sense. That explains 2 of you. So why are there 2 others? Like, okay. And the other guy who's my partner right now is also an FTO. So he's training this guy. So he has to see how things are done properly in the field. So that makes 3. And then long and behold, the sergeant of the platoon is driving by. And since he's 2 blocks away, of course, he's going to come by and check on his officers who are on a alarm. Turned out it was nothing. A bad sensor went off, of course, and we checked it. But it explained, she's like, wow, and I've never thought about that. That makes perfect sense why the 4 of you are here. But just pulling up in my driveway and seeing all 4 of you here, I'm thinking the worst.
No, and again, that goes back to, that's a perfect opportunity to engage and answer their questions. Take a few minutes, and like I said, now she has a whole different perspective on that.
Yeah.
I actually I was a guest speaker at a criminology class. This is years ago at Florida A&M University, which we also have in Tallahassee. And initially it was to be about women in law enforcement. And that conversation lasted about 10 minutes. And then it became more of a, why do you do this? And trying to turn it into a negative conversation. And one student, he asked me, he goes, why is it that every time when I walk up to a police officer, they back away. That's offensive to me. That's, I think that's kind of racist. And this, so I listened to him and I said, okay, I hear you. So he's sitting and I'm standing. And as I'm engaging in the conversation and trying to answer his question, I'm walking towards him. And when I get right up to him, he backs away from me. I said, why are you backing away from me? And he's like, well, I don't know you. You're invading my space. I went. And literally, even the professor in the class, everybody was like an aha moment. It's like, okay, I get it. And so then I go into explain about how officers are trained to keep a certain amount of distance and those types of things. And it turned that negative conversation for that whole class into a great open and honest discussion, which again, like I said, I absolutely love to have. And I wish more officers would take the time and not look at it as a personal affront. Why are they questioning my authority? Why are they questioning what I'm doing? Take it as an opportunity to engage positively with the community.
Yeah. So many things can be won in conversation and demonstration just by listening and engaging with the question or the situation at hand.
Right. Again, it's all about communications.
Yep. There we hit. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we had a tremendous interview, a lot of information shared. Again, if you haven't done so, make sure you guys get your copy of not one, not two, but all three of the volumes of Behind and Beyond the Badge. The website's scrolling below. Make sure you guys check out Donna Brown. But before we close, Donna, I may have forgotten to ask a question, or through the course of conversation, I may have jogged your memory on some things. Is there anything that you would like to share with us right now? The floor is yours.
No, and like I said, I appreciate what you do, and I know you're still working in the field, and I appreciate you, and I appreciate your service. I appreciate you taking the time to do your podcast, because I think it, and I've told you this before, if I can change the perspective of one person, then the time we've spent together is certainly worth it. So please keep doing what you're doing. It is appreciated.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Trust me, it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun and necessary. So thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, there we have another episode of Black and Blue. Thank you guys for tuning in. We go live weekly at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with a special guest. We got a special guest coming on the platform next week. I'm not going to say who they are. Make sure you guys tune in, because we're going to have more questions. We're going to have more interviews. It's going to be a lot of fun learning about them, their experiences, and what they do. So make sure you guys tune in, all right? But this is the platform, like I said, where we highlight any individuals that are in law enforcement or first responders, whether they're rookies, seasoned, or retirees. So if you're in the public, just in the community, just looking to see what the police experience is about, this is the right place. If you're someone who's looking to get into law enforcement, i.e. relatively, you're getting ready to graduate high school, college, or get out the military, this is the right place to ask your question. If you are seasoned and you're looking for your why, or to hear other stories, to find out, if this person made it through, I know I can make it through. This is your place. And if you're a retiree who just like to hang on, want to hear those stories and add your 2 cents, this is your place. This is Black and Blue. This is the platform for everyone. Thank you guys for tuning in. We love you. Make sure you guys stay safe, and we will be back on next week.
Hey guys, I just got this vape from Treacherous Tony. It tastes pretty nasty, but I look cool with it, right? You guys should give it a try. Be cool like me.
Nah, you look pretty stupid. And if you get caught with that thing, you're gonna be in big trouble. Besides, I heard Treacherous Tony is that lame guy who likes to come around and hang around little kids. If you're hanging with him, you must be lame too. Come on, guys, let's get out of here before we get in trouble like Cooper too.
Oh no, Sergeant, be safe.
You kids get out of here. Cooper, tell me where you got that from.
I won't snitch.
I don't see what's so funny. Vape pens like that can lead to harder drugs and cause more problems for you. They're not appropriate for little kids such as yourself. So I suggest you do the right thing and tell me who you got it from.
Treacherous Tony gave it to me.
Tristan, I want you to take me there now. Are you?
Yes, I'm Treacherous Tony. What do you want?
Do you have a card? And why are you selling this to kids?
Yeah, I got a medical marijuana card. I don't sell it to kids. I give it to them.
You give it to them? What kind of an adult are you?
It's a vape pen. What's the big deal?
Are you kidding me? The big deal?
Get out of here, Sergeant No Safe.
Sometimes I just wanna. Yep, I think I will.
All right. I give up. I won't do it again.
That's right, you won't. You're off to jail. Put your hands up and come with me. Remember, kids, what's made for adults aren't suitable for kids. Those vape pens may look cool, but they are not good for you. And that's your tip of the day to get you on your way.
Oh no! Sergeant, be safe!
Subscribe now.